Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to one of my replays. This is a 9.6 game, so the replay file itself is a bit derpy, but that's nothing compared to the match you're about to see. Now I'm going to say at the very beginning, this is my Achilles ace tanker game, and you're going to see exactly the kind of game it took for me to ace this machine. I haven't had, like, the archer, the one before this, I found that rather frustrating to play at times, but the gun was very, very good for its tier. It's just the machine itself, very fragile, and because of it having essentially a rear-mounted gun, although I always confuse myself trying to explain this, but basically you drive backwards in the Archer. The gun points backwards to the direction that you actually drive, even though in real life the front and reverse, well, Wargaming basically swaps it round. So it drives very, very slowly in its forward gear, even though that's its reverse gear, and vice versa. So the gun was good, but you couldn't often afford to take risks. You had to be quite careful. And that is kind of the same with this. Now, the Achilles, you at least get a turret, but it's the same gun. And at tier 6, it's a lot more of a middle-of-the-road gun. It feels less special. And the thing with this line is, well, I'm going through it to get the British Technical Engineer badge, but the tier 7 is, again, it's a faster chassis than this. And this is actually, like, one of the good things about the Achilles is that it can move around well, although the turret traverse is pretty bad, and the gun depression is very bad. The Challenger at tier 7 gets better gun depression, but it's the same gun, and it has a huge weakly armoured turret. And I have seen very, very few people have anything good to say about it, because it's that gun, again at tier 7. And unlike the Black Prince, which also has that gun at tier 7, you don't have any armour to work with, and the turret traverse is so bad that a lot of the times it will just get you killed. And the turret traverse on this is pretty bad as well. But at least I suppose the Challenger gets some gun depression, because this really doesn't. So as you can see, I'm trying to get some shots on that scout, but it didn't really work out. We had a couple of tanks that have gone to the hill, and a KV-2 who has gone as far as the church. The M6 and the Lux have actually gone up, but our top tier heavies, our T-29 and our Tiger 1, are just sitting near the cap circle. But hey, it's Malinovka, I suppose. Now the enemy team has actually got more heavies than we do, which is a bit of a problem, although we do have a couple of reasonably powerful tank destroyers, the 122-44 and the Su-152. But the fact that the enemy team has got 4 heavy tanks to our 2 heavy tanks, and that our 2 heavy tanks are just sitting in the base, well, there's only so much I can do in this machine, because like the Archer before it, although the armour is better than the Archer, it's not by much. It does have on the prow, I want to say, the very front of the hull, the beak, whatever you want to call it. It has a section of 102mm armour, and the rest of the armour is considerably weaker. And although it's supposedly an M10 Wolverine hull, and the Jackson is supposed to be similar as well, well, the Jackson has more armour than the Wolverine, and this has less armour than either of those. And it might just be that once the Wolverine becomes an HD model, it will lose some of its current armour. Or they might leave it alone, and it might just be that this pays for its mobility with its much less good armour. So you really can't most of the time afford to be on the front lines with this, because there are very few guns, even tier 4 guns. Well, maybe if you saw some of the weaker tier 4s, they wouldn't be able to hurt you frontally, but there are still a lot of guns on tier 4 tanks that could easily pen you frontally. And the fact that you don't really have a gun that, like, even tier 4s, you're going to take maybe 4 shots if you hit all of them to kill most tier 4s. So you're probably going to be taking fire yourself all the while. So even tier 4s are a problem a lot of the time. Tier 7s, a big problem. Tier 8s, well, fortunately this is not a tier 8 battle, but you have to be even more cautious, even more campy almost. And it's kind of appropriate because this is, of course, Malinovka. Now, because our top tier heavies are doing nothing, and the few tanks that did try and press up, well, that's 2 enemy heavies that did go for the hill, and our 1 M6 that did go up there, well, unfortunately, he was alone, essentially. I mean, the Lux was up there as well, but what's the Lux going to do in this scenario? And, oh, nice to track the ARL. So, although it looks like, and we can see on the minimap, their enemy Tiger 1, it looks like at least their Tiger 1 and their Tiger P are camping. that is still us very much on the back foot, very much on the defensive. And there's not a whole lot I can do about it because, like I said, I don't have the armour. And yeah, see, aiming for the IS-2 and... oh, that's a bit unlucky. Can I get him? Can I get him? Nice, there we go, that's very useful. So, see how many shells I've had to fire to get even 1250 damage. Like, not all of them have hit, of course. I do actually... like, this is my problem with the 17-pounder. I suspect once British tanks come into War Thunder, the 17-pounder is going to be a much more effective weapon in War Thunder than it is in World of Tanks. But the way that Wargaming have balanced the 17-pounder, some of the tanks that get the 17-pounder, it can feel like just a quite a weedy gun. And it obviously depends on the platform it's attached to. And if it's on a fragile platform, then that can be an annoyance because it's all about the rate of fire. It's all about keeping up that the rate of fire to actually get the damage done. If you're just playing peekaboo with somebody with a 17-pounder, well, if you're facing somebody with a 17-pounder, it's like, well, okay, I know I can afford to take a fair few of these hits. If you get caught in the open and tracked by somebody with a 17-pounder, as that ARL kind of was, then that's more problematic. So, yeah, it's a tank that's very, very situational, and the gun kind of makes it situational. I would much rather have the Jackson with its 90mm, even though it has less penetration, than this gun. But I've committed myself to this technical engineer badge, so, you know, as awkward as I find this sometimes, it's less so than the Archer, just because it has a turret, but it's still, it feels like I'm very kind of hindered in my playstyle, but the Challenger is going to be even more so, and I'm really not looking forward to that. So I'm trying for some shots against that Tiger, but he's more or less hull down. And I'm actually starting to run out of shells here. I mean, you can see the rate of fire on this thing, and it does only carry 50 shells, which seems a bit of a drawback. Like, some of the British tanks, I'm thinking particularly of the, was it the Matilda Black Prince as well? I mean, some of them, despite their very high rate of fire, they are, again, hindered by this, a lack of shells. And you can hold down that left mouse button and pump out the shots every 4 seconds, but you could easily run out of shells before the end of a battle. And it hasn't really been a problem with the Achilles to me, for me up until this battle, but it is rapidly turning out to be a problem. Now, I'm wary of wasting any more AP, so I switched to HE, and then suddenly a Hellcat appears, so actually I'll just keep the HE. But, as this is not the front of his tank, yeah, that gets him in the turret and doesn't really do much damage. So never mind. Supposedly this is quite an accurate gun, but I was having trouble hitting that Tiger, and some of the shots earlier in the battle against moving targets, the slow turret traverse is a real hindrance, and of course you can traverse your hull at the same time, but that makes your reticle balloon even bigger, and it makes you even less likely to hit what you're trying to actually get. So, some of the shots, it was that I wasn't aiming very well. There are a fair few shots, though, that RNG just claims, unfortunately, in this one. And given how long this battle's looking like it's going to drag on, I mean, the Black Prince was camping as well, so both our top tier heavies were camping, half the enemy top tier heavies were camping, and although this must be very frustrating for the enemy team, because it's like it's worked out, it's the exact same situation, that large numbers of the top tiers were just sitting around the base doing nothing. But theirs at least starting to try and push. Well, not this Tiger P so much. But there must be members of the enemy team, people that maybe have died already because they were trying to move around and do stuff, that must be getting quite frustrated. Because we have been on the back foot all battle long. And if those top tiers had been moving around and doing stuff and making a push with, you know, if the IS-2 had the Tiger and the Tiger P with him, for instance, I think we would have just folded by this point. We wouldn't still be in this fight. So it's that inertia on both teams. Like, it could have cost us badly, but the fact that the enemy team, some of their important tanks were doing exactly the same thing, well, it's made this much more of an even fight than it should be. And that was a wasted shot there, that last one. Like, I'm never going to pin that Black Prince when he's angled like that. Not with this gun. It's just not going to happen. So we're down to the last three, me, an SU-152 and an A-44, and the A-44 is really the star of this show, right? He's probably feeling the same way that I am, because he's in a medium tank. He isn't a replacement for a heavy, not on this map anyway. He doesn't particularly want to go head-to-head with any of these heavy tanks, because he knows he probably will come off worse, but he does have decent firepower. And the reason, by the way, why I'm going for this T1 heavy rather than the Black Prince, well, that gun depression. I know I can't easily hit the Black Prince, although he's now side on, so maybe I should turn my fire to him. So that's me out of AP entirely. I've only got 2 APCR. Oh, there's one. That does some damage. Last shot. And it misses. It goes into the ground. Okay, so that RNG claimed that one. And I feel like in this battle, RNG claimed a fair few of my shells, but that's because I fired a lot of shells. And I had to fire a lot of shells because there were a lot of our team that just weren't doing anything. And the fact that the 17-pounder, the ammo on this gun doesn't do a lot. The fact that you don't get that much ammo, well, your total... The ability, like the maximum amount of, what am I trying to say here? The maximum amount of damage that you can potentially do in a battle is quite limited just because you don't have that many shells. So one way to buff the Achilles would be just to give it more shells. Because the Matilda Black Prince, when that actually first came in, I think I was trying to say this earlier and I got sidetracked. Right, so I'm resetting the Black Prince. Okay, good. The Matilda Black Prince had that problem when it was introduced as well, in that it had... way fewer shells than it should have, and you would just run out really easily. So I am probably going to die, but I have provided, like, I know my effectiveness as a fighting unit is pretty much gone, so I'm literally just trying to provide a distraction. And they actually do kill that Black Prince before he can kill me, so that's good. The KV-85 is moving up on the SU-152 as well. And interestingly, both SU-152s in this game didn't have the derp gun. They both were using 122mm guns. But I am now totally out of ammunition. However, that doesn't mean I'm totally useless. It's down to me and this A44 now, but we're down to also only facing 3 enemy tanks. And the Black Prince was by far the toughest of those. Now, we don't know yet that that enemy SU-152's got the 122mm gun, but we do know he's got 3 kills, so he must be sufficiently in range to actually do damage to hit things. The M6 is moving up on the A44, and I'm just trying to keep this KV-85 spotted, and for now trying to stay alive as well, because it all comes down to this A44 at this point. I can't do anything else. I possibly could ram the KV-85, and obviously I'd die in the process myself if I had enough momentum, but I suspect with the weakness of the frontal armour, I would die and just probably not do any good. Now, I had said in the chat earlier that I was down to only my HE shells, and the SU-122-44 at this point goes, "Oh my god, why are you shooting at this guy? He's not looking at you." And I once again have to explain, because I think the SU was probably alive at that point, like he was probably busy dealing with his own problems, but I again explain, I am totally out of ammo at this point. I have none at all. It's all down on this A44, but I can at least give eyes to him. And if needs be, I could take a final shot. Because although I have very little health, sometimes being able to sacrifice yourself so another tank can just take another shot is about the only thing you can do. So we know where the M6 was. We know he's low health. We know the SU is somewhere, but we don't know where exactly. It's not been spotted. So sitting back here is going to do me no good at all. I've actually got to get moving, and I do. I don't know quite why I hesitated for so long, but anyway, we'll follow this A44. And like I said, I can either spot for him or take a shell. And there's the SU. And that is the 122mm gun. So that's good for the A44. He's definitely not going to get derped and heated. It does take one hit though, and this is the point where I think, right, screw it. I'm going to sacrifice my tank. I'm going to make sure that the A44 can get a shot at the back of this guy. And my distraction pays off. A44 is able to quite easily finish that guy off. I think that gun's got 300 average, so that was a nice roll for him. He then sits, he bounces that M6 shot and finishes him off. And that was all down to the last 20 seconds of that battle. because both of our top tiers, the heavies, the ones that should have been pushing, they just camped. And to be fair to the enemy team, theirs were less campy, but they had more of them. So it was as much the enemy team throwing it away as it was that hero A44 winning it at the end. But even so, that game, that is what it took to get an ace on the Achilles. It was that level of derp. So I can look at the scores. That was a mastery. It was a Confederate medal because I hit a lot of tanks in that one. 64% hit rate, 32 out of 50 shells actually hit something, but only 20 of them actually penned. And even so, 2500 damage feels not bad at all for this gun. But if more of the shots that actually hit stuff had penned, well, it could have been even higher. But yeah, myself on that A44, easily top of the team. The SU-152 was 3rd place, KV-2 4th place, then a Chaffee, and only then do we get to another tier 7, the Achilles. Not the, wow, no, mine's the Achilles, the Tiger. And that was our heavy, our best performing heavy with 1080 damage. And in that kind of matchup, that kind of matchmaking, well, that's not great for a Tiger. The T-29 was even worse with 500. So yeah, that was an interesting game, and I will not be sad to see the Achilles go, but on the other hand, by comparison, you know, once I get the Challenger, I might be wishing that I was back in the Achilles, so we'll see. But once you get to tier 8, it gets better. A bit better anyway. You're still in a very, you know, a big target with no armor, but you have a much better gun. And the jump from tier 7 to tier 8 is... There is absolutely no reason in the world why the tier 7 doesn't get a 20-pounder gun, and maybe it will at some point. I really hope Wargaming buffs it, but I suspect it's not going to be before the point where I actually have one in my garage. So we'll see how that goes out. I mean, we might have a contender for the worst British tank destroyer. The Churchill gun carrier might have some competition here. Who knows? But anyway, if you liked this video, you can leave any comments below. You can hit the like button. You can subscribe to my channel. And as always, stay tuned for more.